Breadmouth, you got it. Jay Wilson, I know it's 1:25, but I got nothing else to do, so, and I got work to get done. So you are stuck here with me, Mr., Mr. or Mrs. Ma'am, sir, Zer. Hey guys. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the latest stream I've ever done. I know it's 1 a.m., but my hope is maybe you'll just follow. Yeah, this is an earthquake stream. Sammy, I guess my voice does kind of just sound like this. It depends on how close I am to your ear. Oh yeah, you guys got hit with the earthquake, which I hope everybody's okay, obviously. It's just like I'm about to go out to SoCal for VidCon in Anaheim area, and I'm like, oh, perfect timing. Maybe they got the earthquakes out of the way before I got there. Or it's a warning sign that earthquake Joel coming through. Stovetop Ninja, what's up? With a 5. I'm back, setting in for bedtime, placed 3rd in my bowling league, and won some money, so I'm sharing a bit. Well, thank you. Because I can tell you I am terrible at bowling, so I would not have been able to help you out there. But I appreciate the love. Got the timer started too, so we can get right into the stories. These are taxi stories tonight. Yeah, these are taxi stories tonight, which I'm pretty excited about. This video will be coming out Monday. Let me pull this song back a bit. The video that's coming out, there'll actually be a video tomorrow. I suppose I can release it anytime on a Saturday. Shoot, I could release it right now. Probably shouldn't though. But I think I might just release it at the normal time around 7 o'clock. I don't know how you guys feel about that. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, basically there's a sponsorship within it. And yeah. Or yeah, when I say tomorrow, I guess I mean tonight at 7, so I'm getting my days mixed up as we transition. Breadmouth message deleted by Google. But yeah, that video is definitely coming out. More great true scary stories there. Breadmouth's favorite. And yeah, this video will actually come out Monday then. And I've got, I'm trying to get this out of, all this stuff like done and get this big load of work kind of pretty much done and out of the way so that I can kind of like just enjoy the vacation time to, focus on hanging out with people in Anaheim and all that good stuff. So can I do some reading in a southern accent? Maybe, if you're lucky. Shit. My day was good though. I watched the movie Midsommar in the movie theater tonight, and I actually kind of just got back from it. It was at 9:30, probably about a 2-hour movie or so. I don't want to spoil anything for you because I know a lot of you guys are fans of the horror genre of films. So I won't tell you anything, but if you do see it, be sure to message me and let me know what you think about it, because I actually would love to hear everyone's thoughts on that. You want me to tell you a pun, huh? I think I have one lying around here. Let me find it real quick. Oh, this isn't really a pun, but it's a funny joke. What do you get when you combine Sir Elton John and a saber-toothed tiger? I don't know, but keep it away from your ass. Okay. And that was your joke for the night. You only get one. I will now no longer say anything funny. I sound like your manager that worked at Arby's. Molly, welcome, welcome, welcome. And Christian Pitzer, I remember you said you thought I missed you last time I saw you. Holly digging the frequent streams. Yeah, Holly was doing the makeup on the last video, so thank you for providing that, Holly. Amber, being a wife of an ex-taxi driver, I can tell you some scary, creepy, odd, and strange stuff happens in taxi cab, stuff that would keep you up at night, and stuff that would make you go WTF out loud. Yeah. But yeah, welcome guys. We got about 7 stories tonight. They're pretty long though, so they definitely do the trick. They definitely gonna get it done for you, if you know what I mean. But yeah, Midsummer, if I could, you know, say see it or not, I definitely say go see it, you know. Go experience, go, you know, always go see a movie, you know, once in a while. Bianca, welcome. You told your mom and coworkers to listen to you. Well, thank you. I appreciate the shout out. Hopefully they join the Buttersock Army, or rather the cult. When do I plan on releasing another podcast? So the next podcast will actually be out Monday. Molly with the 5 buckaroonies. Molly, it's so funny that the wow sound that I normally use actually went perfectly with that song, so that sounded pretty good in my ears. Caps, so you won't have to squint so much. That's so funny. I'm still like looking over like, okay. But no, honestly, the caps actually really help, so that's beautiful. Thank you, Molly. Gothic, you woke up. It's 1:32 a.m. Did I wake you up? I hope the notifications don't actually wake people up. To combat YouTube not getting notifications to people like they should, they implemented a new thing where if you subscribe to someone and they release a video, you get shocked. It's like a little shock therapy kind of thing to let you know a new vid's out. So my shocks will be the most gentle shocks, but still you will be, you know, you'll have essentially 1,000 volts going through your body all at one time to let you know, hey, Let's Read's up to something. Yo, what happened to the Urbex story with the 3 house and the guy run down the hall with no floor and if left hanging and the man laughs in the background? I gotta be honest, I have no idea. A lot of these stories, especially older videos, kind of just like blend together in my head. I probably read, I mean, you could take however many videos exist right now and multiply that by 7 to 10. So it's hard for me to keep track of all the different stuff. Jennifer, do I upload podcasts to Spotify? Yeah, every podcast goes to Spotify. You can just type into Spotify the Let's Read podcast, and everything should be on there, good to go. Same with on iTunes. I believe it's on some various other ones as well. I don't know about Google Play or anything like that, but tried to expand it quite a bit there. Nilly 1919 with the 89 kroners. Really hope I'm lucky and you do a southern accent reading. Just have to tell me which aspect of the South you'd like me to emulate. No, I'm not good at the southern accent, though I do love people down south. They are, anytime I've gone really anywhere down south, everyone just seems to be a lot more hospitable in their their general human interaction. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe other people have experienced a lot more Florida man. But from my experiences, people in the South are quite kind. Billy, thank you. You are also an awesome man. Louisiana. Was that pretty good? I don't know if I'm embellishing it a little bit. But yeah, as far as the lineup for what do occasion accent, I don't think I can do occasion. I'd have to hear it. I never even come across a Cajun person, I guess. I mean, that's like a mix of someone. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it someone from like the Caribbean islands, but they live in like Louisiana area? So it's like a couple cultures kind of meeting. Akron 1010 with the 2. Thank you, Akron. Underbro, as a Florida resident, Florida man is just an everyday occurrence. I can imagine. Can I do a British accent? Sometimes I like to talk like Lazy Masquerade. No English accents, please. Yeah, I get a little guff about that. People are not happy. Though I do like Lazy Masquerade's accent. It's very enunciated, specific, tactful, for sure. I think there's so many different sort of enunciations or variations rather in like the sort of UK area. But if I do the Jamaica accent, man, it's pretty cool. Though I remember doing it when I was down there for a wedding, and the people were not happy. They said it was like I literally like it was pretty funny. We were at like this really cool. It was like a cliff diving restaurant. So we are at our hotel, and then you take a bus down the road to a restaurant that has like outdoor seating, concert area, you know, bar, and then there quite literally looks over the ocean, and you can do cliff diving, you know, the smartest possible thing you could possibly have while people are intoxicated, and it's right there available to you. And funnily enough, on like the little hill that, you know, leads up to the top of the cliff diving thing as you're coming up, it's sort of an I don't want to say an underpass, but an under area of the cliff. And there was just like a bunch of Jamaican guys hanging out there. And I think they were both selling marijuana and smoking the ganja. And I just started doing the accent jokingly. And the guy, like, who seemed to be having a good time, I must have ruined his good time because he took a second to stop. He's like, and then he started wagging his finger at me like, no, man, what you're saying is no good. It was really funny. So I ran away. I screamed. I pushed him off the cliff. I screamed. I ran. I said, ow, help me. Please. Isabella, you have a mix between a southern and northern, more south when you get angry. Oh yeah, let the south flow through you. Yeah, not a place to play around. Baker, this is live. Welcome, my friend. Adam, we will start in 6 minutes once we give everyone ample time to roll in. But honestly, there's really no hurry to get into these stories because all of the stories will be available, obviously, as he won't wag his finger. All the stories will be available once they're edited and all that kind of stuff. Pencil Tucky, oh yeah. Pencil Tucky proud. Growing that corn, shooting that deer. It is funny. I don't know if I'm sure everybody probably has a day off for hunting season, but that's always like a normal thing in Pennsylvania. Is It's always a normal thing in Pennsylvania's everybody getting off for the first day of hunting season, and my brother, who's a little bit more into it than other people, getting fired from jobs because of hunting. Electra Hart with the 20. Thank you, Electra. Says, I was going to say, if you do an English accent, I will unsubscribe, but it looks like I'm going to have to do it anyways. Dabs. No more Buffy. She's outie, 5,000. I'm sorry. I've triggered a whole nation. Isabella Anderson with the 10 says, love your channel. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you for the 10. Appreciate that. Jersey Boy people, submit them on Reddit. Ah. That'd be a good stories from Georgia. Or not Georgia, Jersey. Baker, I do. I live in Pennsylvania, home of the Battle of Gettysburg, and where apparently The Office takes place in Erie. Is it Erie? No, Scranton. Sorry, jeez. I am not a proper fan for knowing that. Also, there was not to ruin Midsummer. This is a mild spoiler. If you want to hold your hands over your ears for 10 seconds, I will say something that I think is funny about the movie. But basically, it's about I'm not going to tell you what it's about exactly, but it examines Swedish sort of hyper European culture that has been relatively untouched for a period of time. And all the words they used and things they said, I was laughing the whole time because all I could think about is this is where Dwight Schrute has gathered all of his practices and history. Once you see it, you'll understand. You just imagine that's where Dwight Schrute grew up. Princess Jen with the 2 says, you're honestly the best. I fall asleep to your videos. Thank you. Lydia, you're not proper. You're only half engine. That's all right. We're all half something. We're all 1/32 that, 1/2 this. We're all just a melding pot of mishmash. But it is this stream that brings us together. Strictly this stream. Nothing else in the world brings us together. Just kidding. Good food brings us together, am I right? Holding your hands over your... Yeah, hold your hands while your headphones just push the sound deeper into your ears. Alright. Oh, Isabella, you said I'm the only channel that you've donated to. Well, thank you. I feel very honored and blessed to have received your donation, and I very much appreciate that. Can I do an Irish accent? Probably not. I remember if I do an Irish accent, I sound like a leprechaun from what I'm told. Butter brings my socks together. This is true. My butter brings the boys to the yard. And girls. Mark Toast with the 5 says, anybody been watching long enough to remember WTF Weekly? Oh my god. Mark, that is hilarious you bring up WTF Weekly. Because I've been thinking about it lately and kind of wondering. I remember when I talked to Chills was like, I don't know why you abandoned WTF Weekly. And I'm like, I'm not really sure either. I think it was because it didn't get the views that I wanted right out the gate. But I mean, at the end of the day, changing up content that drastically, it's kind of like, what do you expect? Also, I remember a lot of the things that I posted on there were, not a lot of the things, but one of the first things I posted was a little bit morbid. It was like a flooding situation, and I'm just making pun jokes, so definitely gonna have to be careful I go back to that. But Dave, I think if you type into my channel search thing WTF Weekly, it should still be up, but I'm not absolutely certain. But those were the days for sure. I'd like to go down that route again, kind of I don't really know how channels get away with it necessarily. Do you think Chills and internet, your daily dose of internet and all that kind of stuff, do you think they ask permission before they use videos in their compilations of stuff, you know, because those videos get a lot of views and don't really require a whole lot of editing or sort of script work or anything like that. So obviously that's the path of least resistance and, you know, whatnot, but I don't know. Maybe one day we'll go down that route again. I'm just never sure. I just never want to like test my luck with copyright and all that kind of stuff. But I am done rambling here, guys. We are going to get, you know, feel free to continue to ask me questions as the stream goes on, but we're going to jump into some stories about taxis, which most of them probably are from like 1990s, since Uber seems to have taken over. Amy, fair use. Yeah, the thing about fair use is that, like, fair use protects you in a court, you know? And fair use enables YouTube and Twitch to promote people playing video games online to the point that it becomes culturally normal for no one to do anything about it. But fair use isn't going to protect you from some rando just, copyright striking your channel because you know, utilize their video in a top 10 creepiest, you know, poop sock videos or whatever, you know. So it's like, and you don't want your channel in that situation because, like, even if basically what happens is, like, you get copyright striked and then you counter them saying, you know, this is fair use, whatever your account, blah, blah, blah. And then you go back and forth a few times till eventually YouTube, like, washes their hands clean of it and gives them your personal information. Like, literally doxes you to this person, who then is able to use that information to, if they wish, take it to court. Now, if they don't take it any further from the first thing, essentially you have to wait, like, 90 days or something, like, with a, you know, 90 days with a strike on your account, till it eventually falls off. And that just puts you at a, you know, a disadvantage in a lot of ways with certain things that you have access to, but also just it puts your channel at risk, even if you're not really doing anything bad. Like, though you know, essentially it's a big headache for everybody, and you know, to avoid it is probably your best case scenario when trying to have longevity on YouTube and stuff. Yeah, the H3H3 situation, I cannot imagine actually making a video that was successful and, like, having someone sue you over it. Someone sues you over the fact that they, in their mind, I believe in that scenario, actually thought that most of the success H3H3 had was because of them roasting that one particular video. I think it had to do with, like, the pickup artist guy who does, like, parkour or some shit, and it was just like $100,000 like dollars in, you know, debt paid from, you know, lawyer fees and all this nonsense. It's like, Jesus Christ, what a stressing time. Riley Williams with the $3 says, love the videos, keep up the work. Thank you, Riley. And we also got a donation over here from Murphy with a 5, says, you're one of my favorite YouTubers. I love your videos. It's awesome and always engaging. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But anyways, I'll stop blabbering. We're going to get over to Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse's Dark Ambient to really set the mood. Amy, you've never been in an Uber. Well, they're nice. Definitely makes it easier, that and Lyft, to, you know, just go wherever. I think Lyft does, and I'm not sure, I don't know if Uber's caught up with that, but I know Lyft does a little bit more of background checking on things. So I'm not sure if that adds any credence to their reputation. A guy sued his parents because they didn't give him consent to be born. Oh my God. They lost and they had to abort him. 30 years later. 30-year term abortion. All right. Princess Rena, welcome, welcome. Welcome, everybody, guys. We're going to get started here on story 1. If you're new to it, basically I just kind of, I'll try to go as long as I click record, try to go as long as I can without making a mistake. And if I do make a mistake, you might hear me say a swear word or two, such as poop and pee. And, oh, wow. Mannequin of Chaos with the $20 says Zup. Zadinator. Not a whole lot. Thank you, Mannequin, for the 20. That's huge. You got the baguettes, the cool baguettes. Rocking the emojis. But yeah, let's see how far I can make it here. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your generosity, and thank you for being here. I know it's late. Hopefully I can assist you in getting to Dreamland in some fashion. Being a longtime member of this sub, I know that a lot of the stories here aren't actually real, despite this being a sub for True Scary Stories. That said, I can promise you everything that recently happened to me on my taxi ride home is 100% real and incredibly scary. I'll be brief with the basic facts and get to the heart of what happened. I'm not sure if anyone here may remember me from the story I told about my missing professor, but as I wrote then, I'm a TA at my university, and since the disappearance of the professor, I've been working very late in an attempt to catch the temporary professor up on what's going on. Before the professor disappeared, I would usually be free and plenty of time to catch the bus home, but recently I haven't finished until well after midnight. Since taking the bus home has been out of the question, I've had to take Ubers home. Despite being your stereotypical poor college student, a little cash from the new professor has made this possible. The first few days I called an Uber, but after a friend told me about the cabs that cruise the bars on the edge of campus for fares that time of night, I decided I'd just catch one of them. I'd walked the 2 short blocks to where the taxis were supposed to be and was happy to see my friend was right. I noticed a cab sitting by itself, probably 50 yards from the others, and approached it. Knocking on the driver's window, he rolled it down and I asked if he was available. He took a long look at me, up and down before he answered. "Sure, kid. Get in." Without a second thought, I jumped in the back and gave him my address. He lazily started the car and pulled onto the road. As I sat back in the seat, a memory creeped in front of my mind. "I thought you guys were supposed to be going out of business." I could have sworn that I'd read somewhere that this particular cab company had gone bankrupt and was closing sometime last year. I guess the strange purple color of the cab had reminded me of this. He paused for a moment before he answered. No, kid. It wasn't us. You must have had us confused with somebody else, I don't know." Since I wasn't sure, I figured he was right. It had been at least a year ago, and a lot of stuff had gone through my mind since then. No sooner than I'd sat back again, I noticed that the cab's meter wasn't running, or even turned on for that matter. Hey dude, you forgot to turn on the meter." This time he just raised his eyes to meet mine in the rearview mirror. "No way, kid. We don't use those dinosaur things anymore. We have an app to keep track of the fares. Works with GPS and all that. Just sit back and relax." As he had said that, he waved his phone at me real quick. But what I saw on the screen just looked like the regular timer function on your phone. Like before, I deferred to him. After all, I was a European history major, not someone that makes apps. I took his advice and finally sat back in the seat and tried to relax. We'd gone about 5 blocks, and I pulled my phone from my pocket and turned on the light. I shined it on my wrist to check the time. I wanted to see if I had enough time to have a few beers before I crashed. Tomorrow was going to be just as hectic, so I wanted to have a few to take off the edge. "That's a nice watch you got there." It appeared that while I was checking it, the driver had noticed my watch. "Is that a Rolex? One of those date thingies?" Yeah, it was my grandfather's. He handed it down to my dad when he graduated college, and my dad did the same to me when I got my bachelor's." This was the first time of the night I became a little nervous. He knew well it was a Rolex and the actual name, too. Until he noticed my watch, he'd been quiet and uninterested in me. But the second he did, he became very animated. I'd been wearing this watch for over a year at this point and never once worried about wearing a gold $15,000 plus watch until that cab driver asked me about it. He went back to his business again, but from that point on, I stayed aware of what he did. Like any normal person, I tried to relax and disregard my instincts. About a minute after our conversation, he picked up his phone from the seat next to him and made a call. Since I was already suspicious of the driver, I did my best to hear what he was saying, but he spoke very quietly and was only on the line for about 30 seconds, so I was unable to pick up on any of it. Once he put the phone down, I leaned back in the seat to appear uninterested in him. He paused for a moment and then told me his friend had just called and asked him to swing by and pick him up because he had an emergency. That was strange because I'd been watching him, and I didn't notice the phone ring or even make a vibrating noise. He assured me it was on the way and I wouldn't be charged any extra. Of course, by now, my paranoia was starting to get the best of me. But I didn't want him to see it, so I told him it was no problem. I guess he figured he had me eating out of the palm of his hand because I noticed a real... Whoops. Oh, man. Oh, boy. Nalina, she is back again with a $50 donation and says, I attack yet again. She attack, she makes snack. Well, Nalina, thank you so much. It's good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Huge donation right out the gate. I appreciate that. I know the stream's a little late for some people, but thank you. Thank you, thank you. I never really know what to say, honestly, to people's generosity on here. It's just, it's kind of surreal. It's surreal. It's just surreal. Magatronics, you forgot I was live until... Yeah, I actually thought that as I was reading. I was like, man, I've made it pretty far. I wonder if anybody's going to show up and be like, oh, is Joel even live right now? I guess he figured he had me eating out of the palm of his hand because I noticed a little grin grow across his face when I peeked at him in the mirror. It was at this point where I began to form a plan in my mind. Although he'd not given me any overt reasons to be scared, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in trouble. The second he did anything that didn't seem right, I was bailing out. Forget the physical consequences. We were within a few blocks of my place, so I figured if he was going to try anything, it would be soon. Just to be safe, I removed my Rolex as inconspicuously as possible, wrapped my hoodie around it, and stuffed them into my backpack. He hadn't stopped to pick up his friend yet, and we were approaching a stop sign where he would have to take a right to reach my apartment complex about a quarter of a mile down the road. When we came to a stop at the sign, I decided this was going to be the place that he had to make his move. Either he would turn right, stop, and pick up his friend, or I would go ahead, pay him, and walk the rest of the way home, and he would be free to do whatever his friend or he'd turn... whoops. Nalina with a 20. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Goodness. She just dabs, just dabbing on me. You might as well dab. You made it rain, you might as well dab now a little bit too. Miss Havisham, anybody have any horror movie recommendations? Well, I personally thought The Witch, spelled with 2 V's, was a very good movie. It made sense to me. Like, there was no... One of my biggest issues with movies... Nalina, with a 20, another 20 tam twam. Thank you, Nalina. Thank you. Nalina, have you seen The Witch? Would you recommend it? I don't know if your love for me extends to other horror genres as well. But yeah, The Witch was great just because I feel like they didn't make any, like... There's sometimes in movies where it's almost like, for the sake of the plot, they make characters make bad decisions, you know? You thought The Witch was horrible, Rosar? Well, I'll have to kindly disagree with you there. I thought it was unsettling, but also, I feel like it made sense it just made sense in the context as far as how the plot developed and things like that, because there's so many horror movies that come out today where you just get to the point the sort of progression of the character's decision making is just, it's worse than like the girl who trips in the woods running away from Jason, or like, let's split up, gang, those kind of level of decisions. And man, it happens so often, and I don't even know. It's hard to explain, but it's annoying because it just really like pulls you out of it. Nelina with the 10. Thank you kindly. You said you haven't had time to watch The Witch. You've been watching my videos. Well, I appreciate that. Spend as much time as you like here. And that goes for everyone. Oh, we're up to over 400 people right now, so that's pretty sweet. Yeah, definitely click that like button if you are near your computer or phone to do so. Or if you're too comfy, that's okay too, but getting that engagement and likes definitely helps the video get pushed out to other people. Isabella Anderson with the 4. Thank you, Miss Anderson. Mrs. Anderson. Tell me what movie that's from. I guess it would be Mr. Anderson. Either he would turn right, stop and pick up his friend, where I would go ahead, pay him, and walk the rest of the way home, and he would be free to do whatever for his friend, or he'd turn left, go 100 feet in the direction of the highway where no one lived, take a right down an abandoned alley where his friend was waiting to assist him in robbing me, and possibly worse. I'd gradually move to the right side door, so if I was forced to bail, I'd be close to the curbside where the grass was. As the car began moving, I grabbed the door handle and double-checked the lock to make sure it wasn't engaged. When he pulled away, the car started turning to the right. Before I could let out a quiet sigh, he cut the wheel back to the left and said, "Oh, I forgot my friend lives just on the other side of the highway. This'll just take a second. He should be outside waiting for us." I snidely say to myself, I bet he is. He must have thought I didn't know the area, but I grew up around there and was well aware there was nothing but fields on the other side of the underpass. The second the cab reached the opposite side of the intersection, I said a quick prayer and bailed out of the cab. Despite landing on the grass side of the curb, it didn't hurt any less. Even before I could get to my feet, I heard him yelling from inside the cab. He was still trying to go along with the ruse, saying something about owing him money, but I didn't hear it at all. I knew as soon as I hit the ground I wouldn't have long, so I got to my feet as fast as possible and began running for the alley that ran behind my complex. My hip was hurting, so it was hard to go very fast, but once I looked back at the cab and saw him making a U-turn and heading toward me, the fear gave me speed. I had not been thinking when I told him the address of my apartment complex, but I realized I hadn't given my exact apartment number. So, he wouldn't have any way to track me down as long as he didn't see me enter it. Since the alley ran behind my complex, I was hoping I would be able to hop the wooden fence and sneak into my place without him seeing me. I knew he was aware of the general area of where I lived. Therefore, when I saw his headlights stop at the end of the alley and then take off again, I deduced he was going the other way in hopes of cutting me off. My lungs were burning, but I kept running as fast as I could. About 3/4 of the way down the alley, I could see the lights of my complex on the other side of the fence. Looking ahead of me down the alley, I expected to see headlights, but I saw none. The thought that he may be waiting for me on the other side of the fence crept in, and although the fact terrified me, I knew the only place I'd be safe was my apartment, despite the fact the fence was 8 feet high, roughly, and I'd never been much of a high jumper. I didn't hesitate. On my first try, I grabbed the top, but my foot slipped back down. However, on the second, I had enough strength to pull myself to the top and over to the other side. I was happy to see boards going across the step. Whoops. Nalina, I missed your donations here. Thank you for the 10, and thank you for the 20, totaling 30 buckaronos, and literally just hitting me with another 20 buckaronos. Oh my god. Thank you so much. And I apologize if, in the middle of the story, if anybody donates and I'm still reading for quite a while, I apologize if I don't get to it immediately, just because I'm trying to see how far I can grind out the story before coming back to chat here, but I promise not to miss you. But thank you so much. My god, I don't even... Soon you will drown me in the coin. Cody, why am I'm not ignoring you, my friend, I promise. There's a lot of people in the chat that I promise I'm not ignoring you. Is there something in particular you'd like to ask me? Maya is asking if anybody felt that earthquake in California. Yeah, that's, been hearing about that, and then an aftershock today. It's crazy what's going on. I was happy to see boards going across to step on and let myself down. I was even happier to not see his car sitting and waiting. Once I had my feet back on terra firma, I took a second to catch my breath and look around. For a moment, I was unsure of exactly where I was, but once I started walking, I saw my building off in the distance between the two in front of me. At that point, only 100 yards of concrete and grass stood between me and complete safety. I did my best to be as quiet as possible as I approached the two buildings ahead of me. Creeping with slow, light steps, I walked between them and slowed even more as I reached the corner. I peeked carefully around it and scanned slowly across the open courtyard. It was well lit, and I knew running across it would put me in the wide open for anyone to see, but I had no choice. Taking one more quick look and letting out a big sigh, I ran as fast as I could for my building, praying to myself the entire time. It may have seemed an eternity, but less than 30 seconds later I was at my door. I fumbled with my keys until I found the correct one, and then, just like that, I was inside and safe. I dropped to the floor, fighting back tears of joy. I laid there just a brief moment before I saw the lights of a car creeping outside my building. I crawled over to the window facing the parking lot next to the road. Making as little movement as possible with the blinds, I slowly raised one rib just a bit and looked out. The cab driver was slowly cruising around the lot, looking out his window. Even scarier was that another man was in the passenger seat doing the same thing. He must have picked up his partner in crime, and they were looking for me. Let me just adjust my mic real quick. For some reason, it just felt weird. Yeah, he must have picked up his partner in crime. Jay Wilson with the 3 says, when will you reveal the name of your kid channel? Oh God, no. Never. That's even more private than my, that's so funny that you remember that. That's really funny. But yeah, that's even more private than my face. I'm sure someone will find it one day. The connections will be made. The information will be probably distributed through WikiLeaks. Whenever my political career finally kicks off, they'll bring up the Spooderman and Elsa videos. It's so weird to think, like, I remember that, dude, that community was so strange to me. Spooderman and Usa. I said I might reveal it. Well, I've gone back on my word, just like every other politician. It was such a weird community because, like, dude, some of those channels were cleaning house, like, with the views that they were getting. Like, just posting just the most retarded shit I've ever seen. The dumbest stuff, like stuff you could edit, that you made in like elementary school. And these are like grown people doing this, you know what I mean, dressed as Elsa and Spooderman, and like, but it made sense because like they were getting the same, like, you know, they were getting ridiculous viewership, and there was all these channels popping up, and like, and it's so funny. I bet you could go onto Amazon and just like see what you could probably go on Amazon and just see like the spike in like Spider-Man outfit sales and stuff, or Venom outfit sales, or like Elsa and all that shit around the time that was popping off. But then eventually there was like that Elsa-gate stuff where people were posting weird creepy stuff that went along with it and pretty much ruined it for everyone else. But I had long since gave up on that channel because we really didn't have any success. But I'll tell you what, when I was doing it, I did have, even though it was so dumb, me and my friends, like, who, we were doing it with, like, we actually tried our best to make the skits like kind of interesting and pretty funny. And just the whole context of it, was just so embarrassingly stupid that we couldn't help but just laugh at ourselves the entire time. And and then afterwards we'd always go we'd edit the video, and I had a lot of fun just editing and learning a lot of things about like continuity and just. I know that sounds so dumb, but it was like actually a lot more fun to make those videos in the editing process sometimes than the actual the creepypasta type stuff, just because I don't know, it was just fun to like kind of use a different form of your creative mind in a fashion that was just such a silly genre, but yeah. So that part of my life is long since gone, but I'm very thankful that I didn't pursue that because, I don't know, I think YouTube, I think a lot of the big companies like Marvel and stuff were pressuring YouTube in some fashions to shut that down, not only because of the Elsa Gate stuff, but they almost used that as sort of a ruse to make people feel that that's why they were demonetizing all those types of videos, because oddly enough, the videos that I did on that channel, they weren't like bad or weird or anything like that, but then randomly down the line they would get age restricted, which like my creepy, these true scary stories don't even get age restricted, but those videos that were supposed to be for kids got age restricted just based on, I think, the algorithm taking a shit on all those Spooderman videos. But yeah, that's long gone. I'm thankful that didn't pan out, because that would have been, if you ever got as big as some of those channels got, like Aaron DeBoer and stuff like that, that would have been a high horse to crash from, I'm telling you. Rosar with the 2 says, well, I like the title Octopus I am eating. Like the title Octopus. What was titled Octopus? Oh, you're referring to a movie, a scary movie? One of my videos on there did include because it was just funny because my buddy, we were out, just shooting guns at a range or whatever on one of his properties or something like that, his family's property, and we were just like, how funny would it be to do like a Spider-Man, Elsa video, shooting. So it was, so that was a failed idea, long since past. I'm very thankful that the creepypasta thing worked out, and I don't even know, looking back on that, it's so funny what we do sometimes. He must have picked up his partner in crime, and they were looking for me. I continued to watch them creep around the parking lot for a while until they gradually got further and further away. I was far too afraid to turn on the lights, so I just laid there in the dark until I dozed off. Oh, my voice just cracked. I was far too afraid to turn on the lights, so I just laid there in the dark until I dozed off. It wasn't until around 9 a.m. that I woke up. I made a cup of coffee and kicked back on the couch to reflect on the activities of the night before. I considered calling the police, but quickly thought the better of it. I had no proof that he was planning on robbing me. From the police's perspective and the cabbie's records, I would look like any other guy running away from paying what I owed him. So that was out of the question. Then I remember the thing that caused this mess in the first place. My day date. For a moment, I didn't know where it was, but then remembered where I had stashed it and grabbed my pack. As I reached in, I held my breath because I was almost positive my contact with the ground damaged it. I unrolled it from my hoodie, and there it was, not a scratch on it and ticking away. I guess it really is true. You get what you pay for. I would have hated to have been the son that ruined a 3-generation tradition. It seemed very possible that the cab driver was going to search for me for a couple of days at least, so I called the professor and told him I was sick and wouldn't be coming to classes for the rest of the week. This wasn't totally untrue. I was sore from my meeting with the ground, not to mention I was getting burned out going to class all day and then staying there late to catch him up. From time to time, I've peeked out my window the last 2 days to see if I caught sight of the taxi, but I gladly have not. While I was eating dinner last night, I remembered the discussion we had had about the company going out of business, and just to satisfy the nagging feeling I still had in the back of my mind, I Googled the company name, and what I found made my blood run cold. Not only had the cab company folded earlier the year before because of competition from companies like Uber, another result I found discussed an auto auction being held a few months later, where several cabs once belonged to the company were being auctioned off. My God, I've been right all along. I bet that guy bought a cab at that auction and was using it to illegally pick up fares after the bars closed. I must have looked like a big rube he could get a little money out of, but once he saw my watch, I became probably the biggest payday he'd ever had. I'll never second-guess my instincts ever again. That was the moment the full extent of it all hit me. I spent the next hour heaving my dinner into the toilet. I'm fairly sure tomorrow when I return to school I won't have the cab driver and his pal to worry about, at least I hope. But the memory of the incident will no doubt stay with me for quite some time. I'll be sharing this story with my friends and family. I would recommend everyone who reads this to do the same. For the sake of those you love and yourselves, keep your wits about you, especially after a night of drinking. Be very sure the cab you're getting into is a licensed one, and if you have any doubt, make your Uber or Lyft driver prove he is actually who he says he is. A South Carolina female fell victim to a very similar incident I did recently, but she didn't realize she'd made a mistake until it was too late. Please don't make the same mistakes as us. And don't let this be you. Prayer Fortis, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, with $2 says, have you ever seen the devil? I think we see the devil all the time in many forms. The question is, have you seen the devil? Shrek is love, Shrek is life. Absolutely. Seen the devil through Shrek. Shrek is the devil and God all mixed into one. Oh. Kettle is on. Who wants some morning coffee? I wouldn't mind some. You know what I had? I went to Dunkin' Donuts. Been going there a lot. Oh, pray for Tis. Okay. I'm sorry. Pray for Tis. Been going to Dunkin' Donuts and... you know, I've just been trying all their little ritzy-fritzy drinks and stuff like that, like a good, basic white girl I am. And I got, been getting the macchiato. And, the girl who was in the drive-thru asked me if I would like to try almond milk. And I was like, well, don't mind if I do. And I tried it, and it was so... freaking good. It was so good. So I think from now on, whatever little ritzy fritzy drink I get is going to involve some sort of almond milk, because it is, I don't know if it has added sugar in it or what, but it was real tasty. Rosar with the 2 says, I want it gone. It's okay, stay with me for tonight. I'm confused. I don't know what that means. Alright, so on to story number 2. That last one was kind of a long one. This one also is pretty long. Holly says, caramel iced latte for me. Oh yeah. Get me jonesed up. Kathy, question for you. You work at Dunkin'. Does your almond milk have sugar in it? I'm curious. Like added sugar, you know what I mean? Misha says, I don't care how many times you heard it, but your voice is effing amazing, you lucky bastard. You know, thank you. Oddly enough, my experiences with my voice really doesn't extend into real life as much. I guess because it's not really something that people focus on, or maybe they don't feel comfortable mentioning certain things about people's aspects IRL or whatever, but it's not until I mention that I have a YouTube channel to people where they're all of a sudden they're like, oh, I can see it now, I can hear it now, like they weren't paying attention. Lila, how many stories? I am reading 7 total stories, but they're all pretty long, so this stream might go on for a good bit. Am I closer to the coast or inland? I'm like central. I don't know. I'm actually not really sure. Jay Wilson trying to find me. What's going on? He wants to know what's going on. Alright, so. We got a call for pickup at 1236 Collins. They're going to the airport. You got it? Sure, I'm on it. Those were the first words spoken in what would end up as one of the scariest and most nerve-wracking days of my young life. I wouldn't have a more grueling day until the birth of my first child. That at least was a positive experience. This was truly the exact opposite. It was still early in the day, and I had already drove one couple to the bus station. Things were looking up, a welcome change from the previous 4 days. The fare was in an upper-crust neighborhood. Those folks would often tip big money if you got them to where they were going quickly. From call to door it took me 7.5 minutes. Hardly a record, but it had likely earned me a decent tip. No one was outside waiting, so I made a quick beep with my horn. A moment later, a cute blonde stuck her head out of the upstairs window. Just a minute. I slipped the transmission in the park and leaned back leisurely in my seat. That summer of 1980 had to have been the hottest in memory. Even with the AC on, I was still soaked. My mind began to wander. A moment or two later, the cute blonde came out to the cab, but she wasn't alone. A dirty, long-haired man came out with her. When they got into the cab, I could tell that they were junkies. Where's your luggage? We're going to the airport, right? They looked at each other for a second before answering. Before answering. Alright, Rosar with the 2 says, you lied to me. I like to do drugs and eat pie now. Uh-oh. I think we're not on, you may have drank the herbal tea I told you to avoid. Lorena Lee with the 20 says, you're amazing. I listen to you every evening when I get home and I get ready for bed. Love what you do for us. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. It's so fun. I don't know. You guys are so nice. You literally are such nice people, and I really appreciate that. Sometimes I feel like I take it for granted in like the comments section and just how amazing you guys are here. So thank you for being some of the best community that there is on YouTube. Seriously, I feel like the horror community is an amazing community, and that's why I always advise people to join the Discord, because everyone on there is like super supportive. And just a lot of fun, you know. So if you guys use Discord or you're into that kind of thing, you're looking for some more internet friends, Jay Wilson, I am sorry. I am uncertain. They looked at each other for a second before answering. Yeah, sure. The dirty guy confirmed this, but said nothing about their bags. Okay. I shrugged my shoulders and turned around. It wasn't my job to read hopheads. I started the cab up and pulled away. For most of the drive, nothing much was said. They would whisper to one another on occasion, but not at a volume I could hear. I'd catch a glance at the blonde in the mirror at brief intervals. She caught me a few times, looking, and smiled. Each time she flashed her now decayed teeth, I felt a small pang of sadness. She'd obviously been a beauty before the dope took over her life. You could still see this when you saw her from a distance, but as you approached, the deep wrinkles and open sores made her vices painfully obvious. These were my thoughts when the man called out to me. Hey man, there's a change of plans. We're gonna need you to take us out somewhere. Somewhere else. As he said this haphazardly, he pointed ahead to a sign. We need you to go over to that viaduct to Polk. Viaduct? I don't know if I even said I don't even know what a viaduct is. I've never... Bad Wolfie with the two says, want some candy? It's that time of the night, isn't it? It's candy time. Okay, viaduct. Do you guys know what a viaduct is? A long bridge-like structure, typically a series of arches carrying a road or railroad across a valley or low ground. Alright, hopefully this isn't too loud, but...
Viaduct.
Viaduct, okay. That was loud. I wish you could control the individual volume of, like, pages. Like, that's like a dictionary page on Google, but it's like always like a set volume. Doreen, you recently found me. Love your shows. Your reading is amazing. Your lives are a surprise and a treat. Thank you. Absolutely. Viaduct. Okay, to Polk. Polk. We'll say Polk. I don't even know. We need you to go over the viaduct to Polk. His words made me bristle. Not only was I not going to change the destination, I knew the area around Polk was dangerous. He more than likely wanted to score something. I didn't care what he wanted. I wasn't going anywhere near that place. Listen, I'm sorry, son. Once we had set a destination, we can't just change it. It's a former driver security. You understand? There's plenty of cabs at the airport. You can catch another one there, and then you can take it where you want to go. Of course, this wasn't completely true. I could change the route as long as I called in and told dispatch. Fact was, I wasn't going anywhere near that place. Odds were no other driver would either. I looked into my rearview mirror as I told him this. I noticed the blonde whisper something to him. A smile grew across his face as she said it, and a confident air began emanating from them both. They certainly confused me. I wasn't sure if they understood what I'd told them. Perhaps all the drugs that they had taken had finally fried their brains. They in fact understood me fully. It would appear that I was the one that didn't grasp the importance of the situation. They were going to have to show me. You don't seem to understand, old man. You're driving us there whether you want to or not. His arrogance made me laugh. However, when I looked up into the mirror, I knew why. I came eye to eye with a cocked .38. Now it all made sense. They likely never had any intent on going to the airport, and they knew if they said anything about Polk, dispatch would have never sent me. That meant nothing now. I was going to do what they told me to do, and hopefully I wouldn't get shot in the process. All right, I got the point. You can put the gun down. I'll take you over to Polk. As I said it, they both chuckled, and the guy lowered the pistol to his lap. Well, I'm glad we comprehend each other now. He pointed again to the viaduct exit, and I took it. The viaduct was nothing more than a big bridge than took traffic over. Alright, Hey Fleck, take it easy. Thanks for stopping by. I know it's late for a lot of people, but I'm glad you guys are hanging out and enjoying your time with me. The viaduct was nothing more than a big bridge that took traffic over the train tracks below. It had always been the artery that connected the safer, more productive part of the city to the crime-ridden ghetto on the other side of the tracks. We never went over to it, and I hadn't until today. As my wheels pulled onto it, a sick feeling began boiling in my gut. I wasn't really sure what I was going into. I hadn't been over the tracks since I was a kid. It was the early 60s then, even before the viaduct, and the neighborhood was okay. However, after the race riots a few years later, I figured I'd be safer on my side of the tracks, and hadn't been back since. I'd heard stories and seen various pieces in the paper about how much it had changed, but I knew no one who had seen it firsthand. Coming down off the viaduct, things looked basically the same. As I drove deeper into the neighborhood, however, things began falling apart. It was actually really sad. The little barbecue place I used to go to with my dad was boarded up. What I saw was decay, not danger. I quickly wiped a tear away from my cheek and asked my captors where I was headed. I had yet to turn around to address them. I was afraid to get nervous and just shoot me. All of our discussions were done through the mirror. When we reach Polk Street up here, take a left and pull over. The end of the sentence made the taste of bile grow stronger in my mouth. I glanced down quickly at his lap, and the gun was still there, cocked in his grip. Was he going to end my life and leave me here? My body began shaking, but I fought to stop it. I didn't want him to see fear. I had never been so afraid in my life. I wiped my sweaty palms onto my slacks and swallowed the massive lump in my throat. When I reached Polk, I turned to the left and went ahead about 20 yards before I pulled over. I smoothly slid the shifter into park and shut off the ignition. Instinctively, I sat upright and swallowed one more time. My mouth was bone dry, and I knew if I spoke, the words would tremble. As I sat there staring ahead, the cab was silent. Off in the distance, two boys played catch with a football in the street. The silence was maddening. Was this the end? What did they have planned? My thoughts went to my family. I hoped my wife would be notified somehow. Would she get my body, or would I stay in this cab rotting away for God knows how long? The dirty guy finally spoke. Take off your watch and pass that through your wallet back to Annie, and don't turn around when you do it. So that was the blonde's name. They were definitely going to... well... Rosar with the 2 says, I am but one stone, the dragon is in the cornfield. Oh Lord. He on that good. Just your friends Smith and Wesson. They were definitely going to pop me, since he was using names. I did my best not to let them see me shake as I did it. When I passed them back, I could feel the trembling. She let out a little chuckle as she took them from my hand. Well, they had everything they needed, and this was probably it. Now hand me the keys. This made me even more terrified. They were going to shoot me and take my cab. It looked like my wife was never even going to be able to bury me. I did my best to hide the tears. I could hear the couple begin to shuffle around in the back. I was terrified to look in the mirror. I didn't want to see it coming. I took one more big gulp and closed my eyes. As I waited, an image of my wife appeared in my mind. She was wearing a beautiful little red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. Her hair was up, and she was sitting in our Lincoln. It was the most beautiful thing that I'd ever seen on her since our first date. Wait, what? It was the most it was the most beautiful. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was kind of confused. I saw a funny meme about spiders earlier where it was like a sign on like a restaurant or something. It's like, found a spider doing renovations, and then the whole building itself was like demolished. It was pretty funny. Kitey with the 2 says, thanks for all the great content. Enjoy your night. Thank you. Glad you can be here. Jay Wilson, is anybody familiar with Rob Dyrdek's work? I watched Ridiculousness, and believe it or not, both my roommates on 2 separate occasions from, just silly videos that we posted online were on Ridiculousness. I had mentioned it before in streams and stuff like that. So that was really weird, but also, awesome. And it was pretty good. It was pretty dang funny. It was the most beautiful I'd seen her since our first date. The sound of a car door opening came from behind me, but I ignored it. This was too wonderful of a sight to leave, but the sounds of people running soon after roused me from my fantasy. I was too afraid to turn around at first. Slowly, I opened my eyes and peeked at the furthest point of my vision that I could. It looked like the door on the passenger rear was open, so I summoned up the courage to glance at my rearview mirror. There didn't look to be anyone there. When I finally turned around, a feeling of relief overwhelmed me. It appeared they didn't want to kill me. They had got what they needed and took off. At that moment, I didn't care if I was $50 lighter. The psycho wasn't... The psycho? What is that? Oh, it's a watch. The wristwatch wasn't worth much anyways. I was just happy to be alive. The celebrations continued for the next few minutes until the weight of my situation dawned on me. Alive or not, I didn't want to be in this neighborhood after dark. From the way it was looking, it was getting into late afternoon. Although it was summer and the sun didn't go down until 9, it was going to take me a while to hotwire the cab. Walking wasn't even a consideration. I twisted myself upside down and under the dash. I'd never hotwired a car before. However, I was going to do my best to find out how. It took me about an hour to figure out the wire setup. Another 15 or so later, the sound of the ignition turned over, shocking the cab to life. James Sayers, cab 1128, answer right now, where are you? The panic yells of my dispatcher, Cheryl, came blasting from my radio. I took a second to catch my breath before I responded. What in the world was I going to say? I did my best to explain all that had happened that morning as I drove back towards the garage. It was a tad bit after 3 when I finally pulled in. My first priority was to call my wife and let her know I was okay. Since my keys had been taken, I told her there would be a guy coming to the house to change the locks. Her voice was so beautiful to hear. I reluctantly let her go when the police arrived to take my report. After sitting down with them, I took the rest of the day off. I was still pretty shaken up about all that had happened. My generation didn't have a war. I hadn't been hardened to the prospect of dying. The wife and I spent some time holding each other. I wiped her tears as we made plans of future trips together. I promised to spend less time working and more at home. The locksmith showed up soon after. All the locks were changed, and I took the Lincoln to the dealership the next day to have it rekeyed. I returned to driving a day or 2 later, and day by day, I became less jumpy, and the fear of having someone behind me got less and less terrifying. Despite my expectations, these dopeheads were eventually caught. The blonde did indeed spawn from an affluent family, and her charges were ultimately dropped. The dirty man did some months in county. I had lost interest in the case by then. My son was on the way, and I was working any spare moment I had, so we'd had enough. Our anniversary came a few months before our son arrived. My wife surprised me with a new watch, an Omega. It's since been passed on to my son. he came not soon after, and we had our hands full for the... Wait, what the heck? Our anniversary came a few months before our son arrived. We stuck to the promises that we made that night. The family saw a lot of the country those years, and her and I still rent a cabin in Colorado from time to time. I stayed on the streets for the next 15 years. No incident near that bad ever happened again. I've been working dispatch since 1995. A combination of bad luck and failing eyesight forced the change. I don't really mind anyway. People drive like crazy these days. With the rise of companies like Uber, I figured our line of work won't be around much longer. With my part in the business coming to an end, I'd like to pass on one bit of advice that comes from my experience. In a time full of no-end distractions, please pay attention to who you let into your cab. What the heck? Oh, let's read an Age of Empires. I like that. I'm going to get to these donations here in a second. Just got to finish this last little bit. In a time full of no end and distractions, please pay attention to who you let into your cab. Drug-crazy thieves and gun-wielding dopeheads don't seem to be going away anytime soon. Mary, your son kicked you out of bed. That's no good. Who has the authority in this relationship? Chris Palm with the $1. Thank you, Chris. And Vanessa with the $1 buckaroonie. Thank you. Rosar with the 2 says, "Why you eat my taco? I'm sure you're not really real." Rosar, I am as real can be. I'm on your shoulders. I'm sitting on your shoulders. I'm inside of your head. I'm tickling your ear with my voice. All right, is this one? Yeah, this one is equally long. Jeez, these are some really extensive stories, but I like it because they really expand on what's going on. Some stories kind of start and stop out of nowhere, and it kind of stinks. Tommy, do I ever play Age of Empires? I have in the past. I used to put in the cheat code where you could get like those hot rod cars as like units, and they had machine guns in them or something, and they would just completely destroy. You know, I'm not gonna ruin what I'm about to say. Oh wow, we're up to 800 people right now. That's insane. If you're just getting here, welcome. I am recording my stories. That this video will come out Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and another video will come out later tonight at 7 p.m. It's a sponsored video. That's why it's kind of a weird day that it's released on, but not to ruin Midsummer, and this won't ruin Midsummer at all, but I just want to talk about it. I just remembered in the movie, one of the girls comes up speaking Spanish and says, like, beckons for them to come somewhere, or somebody to come with them, because they're watching Austin Powers. So it was really weird. I'm just, what, they're watching Austin Powers? What? I love Austin Powers, and I actually just recently watched it on Netflix. It's a great movie. Hilarious. But it was just like so random. I'm like, what are they doing? Adam asks, what is the background image? Oh yeah, that is a stock footage created by a friend of mine, Robin Mikalsen. He is sometimes in the chat. I may beckon him into the chat here by saying his name, but he also is, if you go into the description, you can see a link going to, I believe, his Instagram or YouTube channel, and he does awesome 3D work and animation and that kind of stuff. Rosar with the $2 says, I'm on fire, it's very soothing, help me please. Yeah, you must be going through midsummer. Adam Buckley, you were just thinking about Austin Powers. Yeah, Austin Powers is a fantastic flick and series. All right. Oh yeah, there's Robin. What's up, Robin? They're asking about you again. Oops. I kind of burped a little bit. The following is an excerpt from a letter discovered among my grandfather's papers by my father and myself while making an inventory of his estate upon his death on February 15th, 2019. Keep in mind, none of the assertions made within have been confirmed at the time of posting, and considering the time in which the events were said to have taken place, it may never be possible to confirm them. In addition, at the time it was written, my grandfather was already in the advanced stages of brain cancer. The things he is claiming more than likely were symptoms of his illness and may have not actually even occurred. Please keep these things in mind as you read this, as it pertains to the publishing of this document. We are only making this document public at this time in the interests of justice. If any of the names or incidents herein are familiar, or if anyone has any information pertaining to said people or incidents, please leave your contact information in the comments. Thank you. My name's Donald McIntyre Campbell. This year I reached my 91st year on this earth. Recently, due to severe headaches, I consulted my doctor. During the course of testing and the like, it was discovered that I have a large mass of cancer growing in my brain. Because of my age, mostly the great minds in charge of my care determined there was no possible treatment for my illness. Because of this conclusion, I was told I could not expect to see my 92nd birthday. Truthfully, I can't claim to be very upset with this prognosis. I have had a far longer life than most and can assure you all, did my best to live every moment of it honorably. There is, however, one incident I must relieve my soul of before I go before my Maker. Not because I am an especially devout man, but because I've never believed in leaving one's debts outstanding. The specific debt I'm referring to took place in the winter of 1951. Dorothy and I had been married 3 wonderful years. With the end of the war, jobs had been a little thin on the ground. Luckily for us, people were still dying. Therefore, she was able to find work at, as a part-time secretary at Blevlin's Lackland Funeral Home. As for me, I've been at the sawmill since I was 15. The post-war suburban boom had well and truly begun by this time, and the demand for building materials was at its highest. I'd been moved into a supervisor's position the year before. Because of this, we were finally in a position to purchase our first home. Just a mere 2 months after my promotion, we found a nice 3-bedroom house not far from where I'd grown up. Now that we had purchased our home, we could focus more on starting a family. Don't get me wrong, we'd been allowing nature to take its course since we'd been married, but now having children had become our prime goal. It looked as if though our life was getting better by the day. That December, we both had been working as many hours as we could. Christmas was closely approaching, and we knew that would probably be our last holiday where it was just the 2 of us. The Red Chinese were slaughtering our boys in Korea. For all I knew, I'd be in a hole fighting commies the next year. We had one last chance to spoil one another, and I was going to make it good. Since we only had the one car, Dorothy would at some points have to get a cab to and from the funeral home. My surprise was a brand new car of her own. I couldn't wait to see her face. The week before, I made all the arrangements. The dealer would deliver the night before, so everything would be in place for the big reveal that morning. The evening of the 21st, Dorothy worked late, so I was left on my own to stir up dinner. The partners wanted to get everything caught up for the holidays. It was near 8 before I heard the cab pull up outside. I was enjoying an after-dinner beer next to the radio when she came in. I could tell from the get-go that something was wrong. Before I could get one word out, I was shut down. "I'm going to take a bath and go to bed." She had been starving, but I didn't push. 800 viewers and only 200 likes. Yeah, guys, let's pump. Those are rookie numbers. We need to pump those numbers up. Let's do it. She had to have been starving, but I didn't push. We'd both been running ourselves ragged the past few weeks. The fatigue had most likely caught up with her, and she now deserved some time to herself. I had one more beer and hit the sack about an hour later. Dorothy was already deep asleep. I gave her a light peck on her forehead. She looked so peaceful as she laid there, as if she hadn't a care in the world. It wouldn't be until after the holiday that I would learn how terribly wrong I was. Once I'd switched off the bedside lamp, I too drifted off in mere minutes. The smell of bacon and coffee woke me up the next morning. When I sat down at the table, Dorothy still seemed a bit off, but still better than the previous night. She smiled very little, and when she did, it felt forced. Although I'd never seen her like this, we were in uncharted territory. Oh, crap. Although I'd never seen her like this, we were in uncharted territory. I know if I had to keep all the balls in the air that she did, I would have collapsed far sooner. Nothing would be gained by nagging her. She knew if she needed help, I'd bend over backwards for her. Little was said the next few days, but I could see pieces of the old Dorothy peeking through. By Christmas Eve dinner, she was doing far better. The excitement in the air had us all smiling, even Dorothy. After dinner, we swapped gifts with her folks. They left around 8:30, and we had the house to ourselves. Before I could even get warmed up, she shut me down. We both went to bed that night with a frown on our faces. During a trip to the head around 2 a.m., I took a quick peek out the bedroom window. Just as arranged, Dorothy's brand new Ford was sitting in our drive wrapped in a big red bow. I slipped out of bed a little after 5 to get breakfast ready for my big surprise. Just after 6, Dorothy came down slightly groggy and full of questions. "Merry Christmas, honey. Hurry up and eat your breakfast. I still have to give you your present." Once she'd awakened fully, she lit up the kitchen. Her beautiful light had returned, and I was elated. Breakfast went by in a flash. Now was the time for her present. With her hands over her eyes, we stepped out into the cold December morning. "Okay, open your eyes." The shock on her face was priceless. For a moment, she looked at me, unsure. "Merry Christmas. It's yours." I handed her the keys, and she ran over to get a closer look. I watched her as she played with all the switches and knobs. This had to be the happiest I'd seen her in ages. "Now you'll never have to take a cab again." My words hung in the air. Her face had dropped like a stone, and tears began pouring from her eyes. Without a word, she ran into the house, leaving me clueless. I tried to be understanding, but this was beyond stress. There had to be something she was hiding, and I was determined to find out, and I wished now that I never had. When I climbed the stairs, I found her sobbing on the bed. "For God's sakes, what is wrong with you? You've been walking around like a grump for the whole weekend." She said nothing, but the sobbing continued. "Say something." I felt bad even as I said it, but I was at my wit's end. As I sat next to her, I wrapped my arms around her. I was now at the point of begging. "Please, baby. You're obviously hurting. Let it out. Let me help you." She let out a long sigh and eventually spoke. The other night, Friday, the cab driver, he pulled over behind a building and he forced himself on me." Her words knocked the air out of me. I feared anything I said I may regret. Some time passed before either one of us spoke again. What was I supposed to say? Nothing could make it better. The best I could do was be there for her. I held her as she sobbed. As we sat there on that bed, a plan for revenge began to take shape in my mind. That piece of scum dimmed the light that had once shone so brightly inside my Dorothy, and he had to pay for it. Dorothy's reluctance to report the attack would ultimately play in my favor. Since there was no record, I would likely not be a suspect. Also, unless the sleazo had done it before and been caught, the police would possibly be in the dark regarding a motive. If I was going to do it and not get caught, I had to be careful. I was going to take at least a few weeks of planning. My pop always told me nothing was worth doing if it wasn't worth doing well. In this case, that would certainly apply. We'd fallen asleep that morning as we held each other. Around 4, I got up and started making dinner. After what she told me, I wasn't sure if she would feel like eating, but making dinner was the least I could do for her. I can't even pretend to understand women and how they think, let alone know what it would feel like for a woman as noble as Dorothy to have herself respect. Oh, shoot. I messed that up. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, call the cops is a great suggestion. I'm just not sure if these, like, I don't know what year this took place in. If this was post-World War II, if things would be sort of different for these people. But obviously a very sad story so far. Let alone know what it would feel like for a woman as noble as Dorothy to have her self-respect ripped from her. Just thinking about it made me fume, but this wasn't about me. I wanted to make it as easy as possible for her to begin to put this behind her. As for me, I knew I couldn't until I punished him for this crime. Every day that passed was a little victory. Dorothy became more and more like she once was, and I would get a little closer to my prey. Weeks of casual conversation and a few anonymous phone calls finally led me to a name, Bobby Dunlap. He was 32, and other than a few misdemeanors, his habit of doing things to women had gone unnoticed by the cops. From what I could tell, no one was waiting for him at home either, and this information sealed the deal. Now all I needed was to pick the perfect time. After a phone call in which I pretended to be one of Dunlap's friends, I knew when he'd be working. Since the holidays had ended, I wanted to strike as quickly as possible. Moving forward was all I wanted at that point, so I chose that Wednesday to spring my trap. After dinner that night, I took my car to Patty's and had a few drinks. I made a call to the cab service to send Bobby to pick me up. Since I'd given the dispatcher a false address and name, I had little fear the call would be traced back to me. Dunlap arrived within a few minutes. This was the beginning of the second part of my plan. During our ride, I made small talk in order to relax him a bit. "So, you're a young and good-looking guy. You know of any girls we could get together with and have a good time?" It was obvious my plan was working. He wasn't even aware of where he was taking me. When we pulled up to the building, I didn't move or speak. He sat still in his seat, unsure of what I was doing. "What's wrong?" Shit. "What's wrong, Bobby? Don't you recognize the place?" He started shifting around in his seat. I could tell he was beginning to catch on. "That beautiful woman, that one you met on the 21st? That was my wife." When I said that, he really started squirming. "No way, man. She came on to me. I didn't know she was married." His lies were starting to make me angry. I decided to move ahead with the final phase. "You can lie all you want, scumbag. I know my wife. I would have been a lot nicer if you would have admitted what you did." The sweat was pouring down his face. He knew what I was going to do. The second I stuck my pistol in his neck, he shot upright. "Drive us out to the lake, where we'll have some privacy." During the drive to the lake, what? There wasn't like quotations there. Holy cow, we're over 900. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know if it's the time of day, like people kind of like come to this channel around this time to like pass out or whatever, but it's pretty cool. I noticed like usually doing streams after midnight tend to pull in a larger crowd. "Drive us out to the lake, where we'll have some privacy." During the drive to the lake, he began shaking and the sweating became even worse. I had him pull up to one of the boat ramps and get out of the car. It was like he'd already given up. I didn't even have to tell him to get on his knees. I guess he thought that begging would change my mind. I'm so sorry. I couldn't help myself. It was time to end this. I'll see you in hell. 2 shots in the head and he was gone. I carefully removed my coat and slacks, exposing my coveralls underneath. Once I had loaded his body into the trunk, I removed the coveralls and threw him into the trunk with Bobby and the gun. Just to be sure I didn't forget anything, I sat for a moment in the car to collect my thoughts. When I was satisfied, I redressed and started the car. In one quick motion, I wedged a stone next to the gas pedal and threw the car into drive. Watching that cab shoot into the water gave me the feeling of accomplishment I'd been chasing for weeks, even though I had a 7-mile walk and it was 23 degrees outside that night. I didn't feel a bit of it. Wait, watching the cab. The Halo music plays as he walks home. Summer Cat with the $2 says, just popping in to donate. Have a good night, all. Thank you, Summer Cat. Good to see you again. Thank you, thank you. Gracioso. Gracioso. It's a new language. Sun finally fell asleep. Even though I had a 7-mile walk and it was 23 degrees outside that night, I didn't feel a bit of it. In fact, that was the best I'd felt in months. I made it to my car around 2 and drove the rest of the way home. When I got there, Dorothy was already in bed. I tried not to wake her as I got undressed. If I did, she said nothing. The next morning at breakfast, she didn't ask where I had been the night before, and that's the way it was for the remaining 48 years of our marriage. As smart as she was, I'm sure she had her suspicions, but she held her tongue. After all, that was all in the past. We were moving forward. It was about a month later when I received my draft orders. Not until I came home in the fall of '53 did we finally get to start our family. Dorothy discovered she was pregnant with Donald Jr. in October. Christine was born in September of '55, and that was pretty much it. The adjustment period after coming home took a while. However, Dorothy was there to help me through the rougher parts. It wasn't until I lost her in '95 that I realized how much I'd come to rely on her. Now that it's my turn to pass on, the only hope I have is that I will get to see my Dorothy again. Since we are coming to the end of my story, I want to ensure all law enforcement involved with this case that no one in my family, living or dead, had any knowledge of what I did all those years ago. What occurred on the lake shore was only between myself, Dunlap, and God. Please don't hold what I did to that. No, it says shit heel. Please don't hold what I did. Please don't hold what I did to that scum against my loved ones. Their only crime is being related to me, and that's no fault of their own. I ask whoever discovers this letter to turn it over to the police in whatever way they desire. This is my final commission. This is my final commission. I keep saying commission. What the hell's wrong with me? This is my final confession of what I did to that cab driver, Bobby Dunlap, on the night of January 10th, 1951. May he burn in hell forever. Sincerely, Donald McIntyre Campbell. Mod Center, you peed your panties? I'm sorry. We will send somebody to soak all that up here soon. Well, that was pretty heavy. It's stories like that where it almost like plays out a lot like something you would see on like No Sleep or whatever. And even if it, even if it is fake, it was a good story. I don't know if it was or not, but I mean, if it's real, holy crap, I think we're all essentially implicated in that somehow now that we're knowledgeable to it. My favorite scary movie. I don't really know. I'd say maybe The Shining. I think The Shining definitely makes me feel the best types of sensations throughout it, like mystery, intrigue. You know, it's scary. It's artistic. I just feel like it's got it all going on, and I feel like the story is pretty cohesive as well, even though it does have some sort of esoteric meanings to it, but I don't know, a lot of people like a lot of the modern horror stuff, and I do too, and I watch it, you know, and the reason I kind of get annoyed sometimes with horror movies of the present, because I almost feel as if though people think that the only way to express yourself, you know, through like philosophical thought, or I mean, I'm completely wrong, and I actually know I am, but like sometimes I feel like with the way people want to express certain topics, they always go about it with like a horror movie, you know what I mean? And I'm like, or you know, maybe attempt like a sort of experimental filming style, and it's like it doesn't always have to be that way, you know, in horror, or it doesn't always have to be pigeonholed to horror, but I don't know, horror is good, but it certainly has a lot of tropes that it tends to fill, and also, like I said, like the sort of typical making every bad decision under the sun type of thing in horror movies always frustrates me, because it just takes me out of the experience. I'm like, if I immediately know that I would not make that decision, granted I have more of a external perspective than the main characters do, I try to put myself in their shoes, and I don't know, it's just like everyone just seems like born an idiot, or specifically only do things just so the plot can progress. Alright, so I'm hungry, but I will continue on. This is story 4. Not quite as long as the other ones. Guys, do I have a... Oh. I don't know why I thought that was like a question. I would have posted this earlier, but I just returned from a week-long vacation with my mother in California. This whole mess I'm about to tell you all happened during my taxi ride to the airport last week. My parents separated and eventually divorced when I was 12. Per usual, it was decided I would live with my mom and spend the weekends with my dad. This was the living arrangement until it came time for me to choose a college. Eventually, I decided to stay in Oklahoma and go to school there. Since I wanted to stay, but my mom wanted to move to Los Angeles with her boyfriend, I lived with my dad my first year of school. However, every summer since she moved, I've spent a week or two with my mom in California. I was on the way to see her last week when something horrible happened. My flight was at 12:15 p.m. that day. I had called the cab to pick me up at 9 a.m. that morning. Under normal conditions, the drive to the airport takes about 20 minutes. I always try to leave myself 2 hours before my flight to get everything done, so I knew, even with traffic, I'd arrive with plenty of time. The driver showed up a few minutes after 9, no big deal. At that time, I wasn't in any hurry, and he didn't appear to be either. We left my apartment at 9:10. At no time did I express any need to hurry, but from almost the second we pulled onto the road, he certainly was. I have a bit of a lead foot myself, so it wasn't until I heard the squealing of the tires that I spoke up. "Look, man, we've got plenty of time. You don't have to go so fast." I wasn't sure what he said back to me, however, he must have understood me because he let up on the gas for a while. He apparently took this as an invitation for small talk. Unfortunately, his accent was so thick I couldn't understand a word he said. I didn't want to come across as racist, so I just nodded along and smiled. It wasn't long after we started our discussion that he began picking up speed again. He seemed more involved in talking to me than paying attention to traffic. The cab was weaving in and out, avoiding cars and bicycle riders alike. Horns were honking right and left. We were stopped at a light, about 10 minutes from the airport. A man on a bike was stopped in front of us. When it turned green, the driver hadn't noticed at first. The bike rider was all the way across the intersection when he finally did. I guess he wanted to catch up with the rest of traffic. He floored it and shot across the intersection. The bike rider couldn't get out of his way fast enough, and the cabbie hit him with such speed he and his bike launched over the top of the car and into the grass beside the road. I couldn't help but screech. The worst thing I'd ever seen up to that point was when another girl broke her ankle at cheer practice. This was far worse. I'm not even sure the cabbie noticed what he'd done until I screamed. He gave me a clueless look until I told him to stop. He seemed reluctant to do so. He made a U-turn and pulled into a parking lot across from the scene. The driver slowly stepped out of the car and crossed the street. People were already gathered around the bike rider. A few of them were attempting to assist him. The rest were talking to my cab driver. Since I was the cab, I couldn't hear what was being said, although I felt obligated to get out of the cab and actually do something. I didn't until the police and ambulance arrived. It was heartbreaking as I stood there watching the paramedics work on the cyclist. I couldn't tell if he was alive when they took him away, but he certainly didn't look good. My turn to speak to the police came, and I told them everything that had happened since I got in that cab. He seemed like a good guy, but I couldn't hold anything back. My opinion was, and still is, that he shouldn't be driving a cab. Hopefully the people who make that decision feel the same way. By the time the cops let me go, my plane was already gone. One of the officers arranged a ride home for me. I rescheduled my flight for the next afternoon. This time I ordered an Uber. The ride to the airport was at a regular speed, and I arrived in plenty of time for my flight. My mother and I had a great time, but the poor man on the bicycle was always on my mind. Since I got back yesterday afternoon, I haven't heard anything from the police about the cyclist's condition. When it comes to my cab driver, I'm not sure if I'll ever know of his fate. I plan to call into the officer handling this case in the morning. If I discover anything, I'll let you all know. Aw, shoot. We might be able to get to 1,000. That'd be huge. That'd be like the second biggest stream. I think the biggest stream we had was 1,200 people. So if we get to 1,000, that would be pretty baller. So be sure to hit that like button. Rosar with a 2 says, I think you missed my last donation, or did I miss it? Yeah, I'm sorry, buddy. Let me check here for you. I might have got caught up with stuff. With the reading and whatnot. So Summer Cat was last then. Huh. It actually, well, I'm going pretty far back all the way to like Summer Cat. And I don't, maybe it didn't go through, because I don't see a previous one from you, Rosar, but thank you so much for the 2, and if it did miss, thank you again, I appreciate that, sorry about that. Best love story. Come on, 1,000, let's go, baby. Easy viewers, yeah, just stream at 2 a.m. Alright, so this is the second to last story, also kind of a longer one. Yeah, these are the spooky hours, that's why everyone's here. Toaster Bath, you want me to give you a shout out? What's good? Olivia, welcome, welcome. Raven Nightshade with a 2. I don't know, it's kind of cool, like when I see people like with 1,000, you know, viewers streaming on like Twitch and stuff. I'm like, whoa, that's like, you know, like there's just, I don't say it out loud, but Toaster Bath, I don't know why that's such a funny name. What's your favorite bath bomb? A toaster. But like when I see people with like 1,000 viewers concurrently on like a Twitch stream or something like that, I'm just like, whoa, this is like, you know, like a big this is like a big streamer we got here, you know? And whenever I get, when the fact that we are getting to that point on this channel, it's just like, it's like very surreal, you know? So thank you guys for being here. Clicking that like button, and you all your Rosar, thank you for the 2. I think I'm losing my mind. I like to eat raw chicken. Well, sometimes you gotta cook chicken rare, you know? It's funny. I get on my Instagram. I just posted because it was funny, but it was a picture of like, you know, like there's a picture of Donald Trump like stepping into North Korea for the first time or whatever, and then someone like took that and photoshopped as he's stepping, like it looks like he's stepping onto like a skateboard, kind of like the way that people do when they step into a vert ramp, you know, with a skateboard. So I just posted that onto my Instagram story just because it's funny, you know what I mean? People memeing, people scheming, memeing, all that kind of stuff on photos. Like, clearly it's not political, and then someone just DMs me who's like, yo, man, fuck Trump, with a middle finger, and it's just like, okay, all right, man. I don't know if you noticed the Photoshop skateboard, unless he was going skating with Kim Jong-un. You know, I am not associated with the individual getting memed on in the video. Lauren Serpenetto with the 2. My fave, XO, my hospital stay is a little better. Oh, I'm sorry you're stuck there. That stinks. Are you doing okay, Lauren? Kudail, the answer, with the $2. Thank you. The answer. And Chris Palm with the 2. You should live stream more often, man. Yeah, I don't know if some people may have not get to see the streams too often, but basically I've been trying to stream Sunday the day before Monday's video, Tuesday the day before Wednesday's video, and Thursday the day before Friday's video. So yeah, it's I try to stream at least 3 times a week the night before videos, usually reading the stories that are going to be in those videos the next day. Yeah, we're teetering on 1,000. We're almost there. Oh, yeah. We did it. 1,000. That's so cool. That's really awesome, guys. Thank you for being here for this monumentous occasion. Remember, 1,200 was the previous tippity top that we went to, so let's get it even tippity or topper. Rosar with the 2 says, let's read it is in my ear and I'm having an eargasm. Did you ever watch Tenacious D where they're like, and they have returned again, this time to fuck your ear pussies. And oh yeah, what did he say? What is this? I'm gonna read it because I don't know if you've seen Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. They're coming again. This time in your... I don't even if anybody remembers that line. It was really funny. Hopefully this isn't too loud. With that rock. I love this movie so much. Hopefully.
That's my life. All right.
Sorry, I don't know why it's like...
Neil Hamburger, everybody. Neil Hamburger. Funny stuff.
It's like got this
Next
like
I
weird
ask
static.
you to read this. Since the beginning of time, 'twas written in the stones that one day a band would come. Well, that band has come, and now they're here to come again in your ear pussies. Ladies and gentlemen, Tenacious D.
Yeah, so that's that. I fucking love that movie so much. It's so funny. Jack Black is the man with the plan. Hey, we got some donations from The Answer with the 5 says your narrating helps a lot of people, man. Keep doing it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm honestly, it feels great when you guys let me know how much I assist you with certain things, whether that's sleep, anxiety, depression, all this kind of stuff. Like the fact that I can be a part of that, even kind of indirectly through my videos, really makes me feel good. Chris Palm with the 2 says, are your live streams always in the creepy hours? So my live streams are usually start around 9 p.m. And usually go till about like midnight or so. But I got home late, and I gotta get work. I gotta get stuff done because I'm going to California. So I'm just like, well, I gotta get this recording done for the video that comes out Monday. And Jack Black is Illuminati. He might be. You never know. When he said ear pussies, your cat dipped out. That's pretty funny. But yeah, so I'm just trying to get stuff done, and I probably would have just streamed this tomorrow night or something, but I'm like, I gotta be grinding out videos tomorrow for the coming week here, because basically I'm going to Anaheim in California for VidCon. So if you guys are in the area, be sure to say what's up. Maybe go to Disney World or something. Disneyland, yeah, Disneyland. Life of Hams, can you just say, I'm enjoying the stream so much. Good, I'm glad you're here. Welcome. And then after that, I'm going camping with some friends for, midweek to about the weekend. So I'll only have a brief period of time. My monotonous voice is aesthetically pleasing for your insomnia. That's good. I am glad. But yeah, I'll be camping with some friends, and so I just kind of have to, get everything squared away. Oh, that's weird. We had 1,000 people, and then we must have lost some people. Hit that like button if you haven't already, guys. We are on the story 6 of 7, and this one's it's a good sized one. It's a good sized story. Wait, no, actually, we're on story 5, so no worries. We got plenty of time to read and chill. Trap Money Biddy. He says, can you read this comment? For some reason your comment is held for review, so I don't know if you said too many naughty words, because normally it only holds bad word comments for review, but yours must have triggered something. Just a few days ago, I had the strangest experience I've had in the 10+ years of driving a cab. I picked up this well-dressed and good-looking middle-aged guy. However, when he opened his mouth, he said the strangest things. What started out as an entertaining discussion ended up as an all-consuming fear. I'm going to write down and post everything I remember that happened and was said between the two of us. Then, whoever reads it can tell me if I'm crazy or just being paranoid. Saturday night I was working the graveyard. Most of my fares come from bars. I just dropped off a pair of drunk bimbos. I only say bimbos because the redhead claims she didn't have enough for a tip. Instead, she decided to show me her rack. Unasked, by the way. I admit they were nice, but I prefer girls my own caste. It was around 3 a.m. when I noticed a well-dressed, tall man waving me down. The neighborhood, combined with his fancy suit, spoke possible big tipper to me. Once he got in and closed the door, he removed his hat, a fine-looking straw fedora. His clothing and movie star good looks were out of place. I feared at first that I'd picked up a time traveler. I did the usual and asked him where he was headed. I don't know, really. I'm in town on business and was looking for somebody to show me around. His answer made me chuckle. It seemed awful late for a sightseeing trip. Hey, as long as you're paying me, mister, I'll drive you anywhere. And that was how it all started. For the next 2 hours or so, I showed him around town. The university, the Capitol building, the usual touristy stuff. At some point during our little tour, I remember why he said he was in town. So what kind of business are you in? His reply made me laugh even more than his first. The guy was a natural comedian. I'm what people would call a contract killer. We've been having such a good time so far, I decided to go with the ruse. Okay, mister, I'll play along. Well, tell me how it works. How does one go about hiring a contract killer? Well, a woman contacts me. How they do so, I'll keep to myself. If the reference checks out, we move on to business. She gives me names and any other info I asked for. If I decide to take the job, we move on to money. If we agree on a number, then I go to work. With all that anonymity, I asked him how he made sure he got paid after he offed someone. He appeared. Whoops, he appeared. It appeared. It appeared. It appeared. Hey, oh, now we're over 1,000 again. Oh my goodness, we've hit it. We did it again! Rosar with the $5 says, my soul is a raging pillar of chaos. Chaos is the currency of angels. My soul is rich. I guess so. Unless your soul is like used like $1, like maybe like kind of like a solid gold bar. Like they use your soul in like the Angel Federal Reserve or something like that. But thank you for the 5. It appeared my choice of words made him laugh. It probably wouldn't be wise to tell you that part. We professionals have to keep some secrets to ourselves. Okay, fair enough. Well then, how does a client know you've completed the job? I regretted asking the question even before I finished asking it. Even though it was a stupid question, he still entertained me with an answer, albeit with a tinge of sarcasm in his voice. We live in a time with a 24-hour news cycle and multiple social media outlets. Don't you think if your dad died suddenly that someone's not going to contact your mother first? If you don't discover it on your own, someone's going to tell you. Once I'm paid, my relationship with the customer ends. She's ultimately on her own after that. The last part of his answer brought up another question in my mind. If something goes wrong, per se, and she gets arrested or implicates herself, what do you do? He thought for a moment before answering. I imagine he was considering how much he should say to a stranger driving his taxi. Well, sometimes contingencies have been put in place to protect myself. First off, if I've done my job right, the client shouldn't have any information about me to give the cops. And if, on the off chance I screw up so badly that she can, I have multiple exit strategies. I certainly won't let the police get their hands on me. None of us get to live forever. There were a few times I had to remind myself this was all a game. He made it fun nonetheless. His imagination and forethought wowed me. We'd been playing this game for hours before I thought to ask him how he got started in his business. I joined the army fresh out of high school. It seemed my work caught the attention of my superiors. They referred me to a couple of gentlemen in the government, and I've worked for them for 10 years before I made the decision to go into business for myself. I gotta tell you, mister, you're really good at this stuff. You really should be a storyteller. If that's not what you're really doing for a living, I'm seriously impressed. And I wasn't blowing smoke up his butt. Smoke up his butt, Jesus Christ. I wasn't blowing smoke, if you know what I'm saying. And I wasn't blowing smoke. This was the most fun I'd had driving a cab in my life. I was used to dealing with drunks and arrogant businessmen. This was a blast. Well, thank you, young man. I appreciate everything you've shown me tonight. I could tell by the way he was talking the night was coming to an end. It was just as well the sun would be up soon and I was beginning to flag myself. I took the opportunity to ask one more question. One I should have asked far earlier. He had said earlier in the night he was in town for business. Did that mean he was here to off someone? A sly grin grew across his face as he thought of his answer. Well, as a matter of fact, As a matter of fact, I was. However, I received a message at the last minute to cancel the hit. I get to keep the half she'd already given me, so I didn't mind. That's business. It happens on occasion. That's a woman's prerogative, after all, isn't it, to change their minds? I hope her and her old man work it out. Anyhow, that's how I ended up with you. Just as the first rays of the sun broke over the horizon, he pointed out a place to let him out. There were a few hotels at the end of the parking lot, and I assumed that was where he was headed. He reached over the seat and handed me a $1,000 bill. Before I could argue, he told me to keep the change. It was twice what I was owed. $1,000 bill. Do they even have $1,000 bills? I'm actually curious. $1,000 bill. Who is on the $1,000 bill? Looks like Theodore Roosevelt. Wait, let's ask Google. Who is on... Okay, it already knew what I was going to ask. It's kind of weird. Grover Cleveland is... No, that's the $500 bill. D'Angelo, can you not spam in chat for me? Thanks, friend. Yeah, let's see. Okay, we have the $100 bill. We'll get to it later. If anybody knows, let me know in chat, because definitely interesting. He reached over the seat and handed me a $1,000 bill. Before I could argue, he told me to change the change. Wait, sorry. He told me to change the keep. Before I could argue, he told me to keep the change. It was twice what he owed, but I was too tired to disagree. Keep the change, kid. You earned it. I had a great time tonight. Thank you, mister. I had a great time myself, and thank you most of all for the awesome story. As he stepped from the cab, he said one last thing. And thank you for showing me around tonight, Adam. Take care of Linda, and stay out of trouble. I pulled out of the lot and headed for home. My hope was that Linda would have breakfast going, and that's when it hit me, like a hammer. How did that man know my name? Not to mention my wife's. My license was nowhere he could have seen it. I reenacted the night's discussion in my head. There was never a point in which I told him. It would have ruined the game. I didn't ask him his, and there was no reason for him to tell me. Oops. I didn't ask him his, and there was no reason for me to tell him mine. Certainly not my wife's. How did he know I was married anyway? I hadn't worn a ring in years. I lost it down a drain and never found it. I suppose he could have guessed. The problem with that is that Linda and I had just gotten back together last week. We'd been separated and considering divorce for 2 years before that. When I pulled into the driveway, a terrible idea came into my head. Was there a possibility that guy wasn't making up a story? No one would dare tell someone, even a stranger, in such a bold and frank way that he was a hitman. If he was serious, the fact he knew my name and my wife's could only mean one thing. Even if it was true, I wasn't ready to accept it. While Linda and I sat and ate that morning, I couldn't stop myself from watching her. I was terrified that my wife had wanted me dead. Even if she had changed her mind, there was no way she'd admit it. If I did ask, either answer would most likely destroy the fragile peace we've built between us. I need to know what the readers think. Am I crazy? Or is this really happening? Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I've heard a hitman story since, like, what's his name? I don't think I've heard a hitman story since Corpse Husband had done, or I don't know if it was him, but it was like some sort of No Sleep or something like that. That he had a pretty popular, like My Wife Ordered a Hitman or something like that. I forget what it was called. Do 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 do. Okay. Alright, so story 6. Alright, story 6 and 7 aren't super long, but they should be pretty good, I guess. These last 5 have been really good. Oh, God. Spammers in the chat. Everyone hide. No spamming allowed, my friends. It's aesthetically not pleasing. You're gonna do a Hitman on yourself. I always see the Hitman video game series. Seems pretty sweet. I don't know if anybody's been trying that lately, but I know they've been doing, like, since they haven't had as much money for development, they've been doing them kind of in like iterations. Holly asked, do I like Twin Peaks? You know, I've heard good things, but I have never seen it. I know, that's a bannable offense by me. I was in town recently and ran into a friend from college. I hadn't seen her in quite some time. She told me the story I'm about to share with everyone here. It involves another girl from school who had recently been the victim of an, until recently, unidentified serial murderer. The story he told the police of what she experienced that night makes any horror film pale in comparison. To preserve the privacy of her family members, I'll be referring to her as Fiona. Also, I will not be using the actual name of her killer. I refuse to let that filth's name come out of my mouth. I hope you understand. Fiona has always been an aspiring writer. Although she'd managed to have a few minor successes, the one big popular hit continued to elude her. Because of this, she still kept a day job. She's been a bartender at the local college-friendly bar. Therefore, when her and her boyfriend moved to Miami, she began tending bar again and making ends meet. The night she died, she stayed after her shift and had some drinks. Her fellow bartender that served her that night said that although she was intoxicated, she wasn't fall-down drunk. She most likely still had some of her decision-making faculties left. After you read what she went through, you may wish she was blacked out. The bartender on shift called Fiona a cab. She left 15 minutes later, and that was the last time anyone saw her. This cab ride would prove to be her last. Still unknown to the world, her driver, John Smith, as I will refer to him as... Fuck. Oh boy, Fiona Apple. Rose R. with the 2 says, Grover Cleveland, $1,000 bill. You play Hitman 2. Nice. Well, it was weird because it said Grover Cleveland when I typed it in, $1,000 bill, but then it showed a $500 bill. So I'm like, what are you talking about? D'Angelo, I need you to not spam the chat, please. I put you in timeout. Next time, you're gonna get executed at Times Square. Just kidding. Your username will be spanked. Gothic Rose, you want to be a mod? Gothic, I'm going to make you a mod since you're here all the time, and I respect you as a friend and a narrator. And you can keep a good eye on everything here. This cab ride would prove to be her last. Still unknown to the world, her driver, John Smith, as I will refer to him as, had taken the lives of 6 other women over the past 10 years. Fiona was about to be the 7th. The only positive thing we can take away from her losing her life is it causing an end to Smith's decade-long spree. Smith's confession gives us a first-hand account of the inner workings of a killer's mind we would not otherwise get. I'll try my best to give you as thorough as possible retelling while not causing unneeded stress. There's no need to be vulgar. At some point in her ride, Fiona nodded off. Smith took this opportunity to take the cab to an out-of-the-way place. He'd used this area several times in the past to be alone with his victims. Before she had any idea of what was going on, Smith had separated from her. Oops. Your average Joe, my voice, you're working on a project, and my voice helps motivate me. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, nice. It's tough to find motivation sometimes, and I'm glad that I can be part of that. What kind of project are you working on? Gothic Rose, absolutely. No, Gothic, thank you for being not just a member, I guess, but also a committed narrator and just always being at the streams and being really positive. So, absolutely. Thank you for modding, too, Yes. Yes. Before she had any idea of what was going on, Smith had separated her from her phone and quickly locked her into a pair of handcuffs. Smith believed once that was taken care of, Fiona would be at his command. Despite this, she fought her oh man, I don't know why that was hard to say. Despite this, she fought her captor. However, a hard knock on the head with a tire iron stopped this. Only then, Smith was truly free to brutalize her at his will. He claims there wasn't any action. He claims he never actually did anything, but tests of her body prove otherwise. Sometime after the assault, Smith left Fiona alone, still apparently believing her to be unconscious. This is when she took her chance to get away. On this part, I'll have to use a little conjecture. Although she was handcuffed, she must have had some hope that she could find help. The area Smith had taken her to is heavily wooded and remote. From the scratches found in her face, it's thought she'd been running through the woods for a while before she stumbled upon a road. Unfortunately, the road she had discovered sees very little traffic. When a car did finally come along, she waved it down. The bad news was that it was Smith. As soon as he'd noticed her missing, he headed for the main road. He drove up and down for about 30 minutes until he saw her waving at the car. When she realized the situation, it was too late for her. She tried to run back into the woods, but Smith caught her. He was done playing games at that point. After 5 or 6 strikes to the head, she was gone. Her body was left in the woods and wasn't discovered for another 4 days. Before he left her, Smith did his best to build a plausible story. If he was questioned, he could say that he took her home and went on with his life. He had a record of her payment, and his prints wouldn't be on anything she owned. From the outside, he had nothing to hide. Other than the fact that he had given a ride to a couple of the victims, the police had nothing solid against him. In a town with only 3 cab drivers, he was bound to have driven 1 or 2 of the girls. What Smith didn't know at the time was that the police had found a pair of eyeglasses near Fiona's body, and they had traced them back to him. The cops wanted to see if Smith would confess if caught in a compromising position. So, they hid out across from the spot where her body was found and waited. Sure enough, on the second day, they caught him at the dump site searching for his glasses. An hour later, they had their confession. In the following days, he would confess to the other 6 girls' deaths and recount in gory detail how he undertook his crimes. My friend who had originally told me about the case works with the county prosecutor. Prosecutor. Works with the... Okay. You were in Georgia and you only had a 4.5 earthquake. I can't believe there was one in Georgia. That's crazy. Mitch Beast, nothing connected by wires, and they found a fuel source called Element 115 in the 80s and it was finally added to the periodic table in the early 2000s. That's crazy. When was the periodic table discovered? And it just almost seems like one of those discoveries that's like, first off, way beyond my current comprehension, but also way ahead of its time in some fashion, even though I know that something has to get discovered for it to be part of its time. But I don't know, it seems like such a complicated thing to have determined in the past. My friend who had originally told me about the case works with the county prosecutor. She says their intent is go for the death penalty on Fiona's murder, if not all of the victims. She's the reason I have so much inside information about Smith's confession. Owing to her position in town, she is only able to say so much about the case. However, I have no such restrictions on myself. She wanted to make sure our friend's fighting spirit and determination to not go down easily be known by the wider world. Please, rather than remembering the name and horrors that monster committed upon these 7 innocent women, let's celebrate their lives and the way in which they enriched the lives of those they loved. They will all be missed. Rosar with the 5. Thank you, Rosar. You're very generous tonight. And says William McKinley, the 25th president, on the $500. Also John Marshall on an earlier $500. Okay. Interesting. So it's changed. It's changed over time. Average Joe says, I'm working on a tedious editing project where I take in clips from shows and merging them together. Thank you for asking. I really appreciate it. Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes tedious editing can be annoying, but if there's a little bit of creativity involved in it as well, it can be kind of like a little bit cathartic, but I'm not really sure. Cathartic in the sense that it's like, you feel like you're expressing yourself a mild amount, maybe. Matthew Coleman, no worries. I'm just happy you're here. Wonder if we can get to 1,100. 1,100 people. Oh yeah. Hold your breath. It'll be a video without the chat on Monday. Oh yeah, who's hold your breath? Oh, please guys, stop distracting while he's reading. I have attention split disorder. Every time he stops the story to chat to you, I forget what the story was before. Oh no, it's all good. Yeah, like they said, the stories will be released in an edited, a more direct edited fashion this Monday. So you can look forward to seeing that. Yas. Yummy Bells, what's up? Welcome. Streaming on a weekend, indeed I am. How are the sunny climes of Western Japan? I only say sunny climes of Western Japan just because one of my favorite, well, you've donated in yen before, which thank you for that, but also there's one YouTuber that lives in Japan that I watch. She always says, like, hello again, friends. Broadcasting live from the sunny climes of Western Japan. And he always says that every one, so it's funny. It's not like I know where you live or anything. A few days ago, while doing research for an upcoming book, I came across several photos from an unsolved murder that took place in the May. Dang it. A few days ago, while doing research for an upcoming book, I came across several photos for an unsolved murder that took place in May of... I keep wanting to say the year 2000. I don't even know why. I'm just so used to saying it. In the year 2015. The ancient time. Excuse me. Okay. I will get it this time, I premise. I premise the promise. A few days ago, while doing research for an upcoming book, I came across several photos from an unsolved murder that took place in May of 1954. They portrayed a shocking scene. 2 bodies, 1 male, 1 female was discovered. The male had a single gunshot to the head. The male, The male had a single gunshot to the head. The female, a violently mangled skull lacking any nearby blood. The only sign that there was any crime at all was the blood-soaked taxi found almost a mile from the bodies. The aspect of the crime that grabbed my attention and motivated me to take further look was the downright lack of any motive or suspects. Included with the pictures was a story written at the time of the murderers and a recent update telling of how the case was being reopened. Although it's beyond cold, the hope is that all the amazing advancements in science can finally be used to solve the case. It's more than likely the individual or individuals involved in the crime are now dead. Regardless of that probability, the loved ones left behind deserve the chance at some form of closure. Since I've been able to... Whoops, sorry. What is it? Since I've been unable to think of anything else, I've dedicated my research time to finding out more about those involved in the crime and the area in which it took place. With a few days of intense study under my belt and a small amount of hindsight, I've formed a theory as to what may have occurred that warm May evening. Before I let you in on my whole little idea, I want to stress that I have come to this conclusion on my own. The new police investigation has no connection to myself, and the law enforcement agencies working the case have no knowledge of my research or existence, for that matter. Fuck, I don't know why I messed that up. The new police investigation has no connection to myself, and the law enforcement agencies working the case have no knowledge of my research or existence, for that matter. What started as an entertaining bit of reading has become a personal search for the truth and a possible chance at justice. No, I never knew either victim of this long-forgotten horror. It is still no less personal of a journey. The way I see this thing playing out is like so. The male, whose name was Alfred Green, had a record of assaulting women. One being... Oh, God, I can't say the R word. I don't know why. I mean, I could, but it's just... It's not good for YouTube. One being an attempt to force himself on someone, which the charges were later dropped. Green was an employee of the Checker Cab Company. It was his blood-soaked cab found almost a mile away from the two bodies. Considering Green had only the one bullet wound to the head with the average blood pool surrounding the body, I've concluded the massive amount of gore covering the taxi's interior belonged to the female, Anne Hillman. It was said very little blood was found under her body, which only strengthens my belief. Miss Hillman was an assistant librarian and had no criminal record or connection to the crime world. Her friends said she was the stereotypical bookworm. She also had no boyfriend or any romantic entanglements known to anyone at that time. That therefore eliminates the love triangle theory. The last person to see her, Linda Banks, a teller at First National Bank, said that Miss Hillman had mentioned catching a cab back to work. This is where my research of other crimes in the area helps out. Another woman's body had been discovered dumped on the side of the road not far from where this crime took place a month prior. She had been assaulted and beaten to death with a blunt instrument. This likely occurred at another location. With all this information compiled, I've been steered to the following assumptions. I believe Mr. Green and the third unknown subject had joined together to abduct by misleading the victims, taking them to a separate location, and worst of all, doing terrible things to them, and then ending their lives. In this specific case, I believe that after the two men had abducted Miss Hillman, rather than taking her to a separate location, drove to the area the cab was... Wait, what? I don't know why. The run-on sentences just confuse me, right? In this specific case, I believe that after the two men had abducted Miss Hillman, rather than taking her to a separate location, drove to the area the cab was found in. At this location, one of the men, probably Mr. Green, assaulted Miss Hillman. When it came to the act of ending her life, it appears that Mr. Green took it too far and lost control, causing the car to be coated in blood, thus making it a very obvious crime scene that would be difficult to conceal or clean. At this point, Mr. Green's accomplice likely decided he was far too risky of a partner to have. Therefore, after assisting with the dumping of Miss Hillman, the unknown accomplice killed his partner with a gunshot. He more than likely never saw it coming. Once the liability had been eliminated, the partner removed any evidence of his existence from the cab. Now satisfied, no one alive could connect him with the crimes. The unknown third man left the scene. Because of his smart actions at the scene, he remains free all these years later. As I said, this is only a theory. I haven't any new information or facts held back from law enforcement. It's all a result of putting one and one together. This is the only logical way it makes sense to me. Green obviously didn't shoot himself, and there had to be a third person involved. I plan on turning my notes over to the police. Whether they decide to use any of my conclusions is up to them. For the sake of the loved ones left behind, I hope they do. Alright, guys. Now, you are all invited to think of what you would like to say for my closing lines. As you guys, some of you are probably familiar with, at the end I always say, thanks so much, friends, and remember, and then, someone says some sort of silly quip that they all hear later after they've heard the stories, and they say, oh boy, I was at that stream when he was reading those stories, and I remember I told him to say that, and now he said it, and it's there. But yeah, I tend to make nice use of pretty good trouble. Sorry, I didn't realize chat's having a deep conversation with themselves right now. So I'll just be here, guys. Don't mind me, You want me to say Hail Satanas? Satanas? I don't want to say that. It has to be funny. Or like punny. When did this live start? We started 2.5 hours ago. Eating cake won't make you late. That's a good one. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Maybe like a comedy joke or something. Don't let your memes be dreams. Hail satin. Hail the soft sensation of satin. Mannequin of chaos. I'm so confused by that. I'm not really sure what a Zadinator is. But I've seen you reference it quite a bit, and it makes me giggle. But I need to know why it makes me giggle. I see farts. That's what I'll say. Ancient Aliens is on, guys. And remember, Ancient Aliens is on TV. His Eminence, Styx Hexenhammer, he's a good boy. Rosar with a 5 says, outro should be, do your best to be a good demon and eat your full serving of souls in the morning. Yeah, that sounds fine to me. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, Let's Read Official, and give and receive feedback from the community, and maybe even hear your story featured on the next video. And join my Discord to interact with me, and... Wait, why? That's weird. I was looking at your donation, and then it popped away for some reason. And join my Discord to interact with me and other listeners directly. And if you want to support me even more, grab early access to all future narrations for just $1 a month on Patreon, and maybe even pick up some Let's Read merch on Spreadshirt. Links in the bio. Thanks so much, friends. And remember, do your best to be a good demon and eat your full serving of souls in the morning. There it was. There it was, and there it is, and there it will be. And so it was, is, and will, and thus, and then. Amen. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here with me super late. I can tell I got the Night Owl crew rolling with me. I sound pre-recorded. That's cool, I guess. But toaster bath, do a bonus story. I want to, but it's late and I gotta go to bed because I am tired and I gotta do a bunch of work this weekend so that I can prepare for this coming week when we go to VidCon. So if anybody's in the California area, hasn't died from a earthquake yet, save some for me because I'll be there this whole next week. And yeah, the 1K night crew, this is it. But yeah, if you guys want to keep chatting, you want to keep up with me, follow me on Twitter at Let's Read Creepy, Instagram at letsread.official. Join my Discord. That link is down below in the description. Yeah, pretty much anything that you want is down in the description if you want to follow me, if you would like to stalk me on social media or chit chat with me, because I'm always hanging out in Discord from time to time. And I'm sure there'll be people in voice chat after this. I might actually hit the hay, but love you guys, and thank you so much again for being amazing and letting me do the most fun job in the world here. Truly, truly blessed to be doing it. So thank you guys so much. G-night. G-night. Sleep well, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs nibble upon your nipples. Oh, also, there will be a video coming out tonight at 7 p.m. that's already ready to go. So keep an eye out for that, in case you were wondering where Friday's video was. And then this one about taxi drivers will come out Monday. So, yeah. Yeet. Yeet-haw, everyone. Yeet-haw.